Hey guys, we're gonna cover three ways to make 10K per month with your podcast. So the first one here, it's lead gen podcasting. So lead gen podcasting is quite simple. You invite people to your podcast that are your ideal customer persona, so potential clients. Meaning, my ICP, for example, is CEOs and founders of tech companies making at least 1 million per year and growing at the 15% headcount, yearly headcount rate, for example, and funded, right? Then I could stack a bunch of criterias. I even have a way nowadays to ask AI agent question about if this guest is a good fit for me. For example, do they often post on LinkedIn? How many followers they have on LinkedIn? What do they talk about? Do they talk about startups? Do they talk about AI and stuff? So lead gen podcasting is the first way to make 10K a month on your podcast. The math is quite easy. For example, me, I charge 5K per month per client, right? So all I need to do is to generate two clients, and then I have 10K MRR. How do I do that? What's the background mathematic to that is every 10 guests that you have on your podcast, one is going to convert into a client, right? So let's say that I email 100 to 1,000 CEO founders falling under my ICP. Probably, yeah, 10 will accept and one will close, right? So if I do that on a daily basis, then the math ranks up pretty quick. In technically 2 days, max a week, I can generate two clients that will get me to 10K MRR per month. That is the easiest way to monetize a podcast. A lot of people, they'll charge their guests. The effect of that is that no one will want to come on their actual podcast, and before long, their podcasting dreams will be over. Bad strategy, right? So instead of doing that, instead of charging your guests, use it as a funnel, right? Use it as a lead magnet. They come on your podcast, they have fun, you record, you have great time, you produce content out of it. It's win-win, right? But on the back end of that, you send them an email asking them if they would like to work with you. Me, I offer podcasting service. I offer right after we're done to book them on other podcasts, right? So if they want to be booked on my pod, it's a sign, it's a very strong trigger that they want to be booked on other podcasts. So it's kind of smart doing that. But any service you offer, for example, if your podcast is about talking about ads, right, in PPC, and you interview a VP marketing about some elements of their ads, let's say that you're specialized in making visuals for their ads, and you talk the whole podcast about PPC, and you see that when it comes to visuals, they could use a hand, right? And you interview VP marketings. Well, guess what? 1 out of 10 will certainly buy from you, and three will accept a call with you. It's not because they don't buy in your 30-day sales cycle that they won't buy 3 to 9 months from now, let's say. So lead gen podcasting is ultimately powerful. I see very few people using these systems to monetize their podcast, and that system itself is the number one lead gen that I have. Everything combined together. So I'm not sure why people are still missing out on that. They're still running ads. They're still pitching people directly in 2024, 2025, and that's just not working anymore. So lead gen podcasting, that's the first way to get to 10K MRR. The second way is podcast sponsors. So podcast sponsors, yeah, a bit harder, right? Because, and I go in order of importance, right? The third one, by the way, will be YouTube AdSense. So it's getting harder and harder to generate 10K MRR the longer this video goes. But the second one, sponsors, you'll sort of have to change your strategy. What I mean by that is that you'll have to have a great podcast. Like me, I still put emphasis on lead gen podcasting because that's what I know. That's also like how I generate cash for most of my agencies, consulting type of business. But if you would want to launch a correct podcast by the book and potentially make great money, like all these top podcasts like Tim Ferriss Show, How I Built This with Guy Raz, and so forth, all these podcasts have top sponsors, right? So how you get there is that you develop really good content through having really amazing guests. I have tips for that as well. I can also help with that. But it starts with you, the guests, and the podcast content. Well, lead gen podcasting, sometimes I accept people with so content because I know they'll be good clients for me. For example, in this instance, if you want to generate cash with podcast sponsors, you'll have to go like 100% quality almost, right? Because that is what will attract viewers, quality content, right? And if you have top viewers and lots of downloads, you'll attract podcast sponsors as well. How will you attract these podcast sponsors? Well, you know me, cold email. Cold email is the best method to get in touch with these folks. So I had a high degree of success contacting sponsors and getting responses. What I do for that? Well, first, let me address, like, before I get to how to get sponsors, let me address on how to get great guests, right? Um, AI agents. So I can filter the lists via Apollo, via multiple criteria. And you can check my last video in my AI Outreach Masterclass. It's talking exactly about that. But I can ask that agent, if I can show you on my screen, not only like am I filtering for CEOs and founders, but I'll be asking the AI agent, like I first told you, how much views do they have on LinkedIn? Do they post on a daily basis? Have they been on a podcast recently, right? So with this, you can, with Persona AI, there's agents, and the prompt would be like, return yes if they post frequently on LinkedIn, if they've been, if they are once a month invited to a top podcast. And I can put like a list, right? So that even if you have a big list of CEOs that is pre-filtered with Apollo or contact out criterias like revenue, like funding, and so forth, well, the AI agents will overfilter it instead of outsourcing that to your assistant, right? Or being OCD and wasting time doing that yourself. So that's how you get great guests. Then, if you want to get sponsors, you would also outreach these sponsors. One very cool method is that I would get a list here on Persona of top podcast guests, top podcast sponsors. Sorry. How I would do that, I would go on Apify. I have a podcast scraper here. So say like podcast. It's an Apple podcast scraper, right? So I would scrape a bunch of podcasts, like let's say Lex Friedman show, which should be first here. Yeah, he now publishes more on Spotify than he does on Apple, interestingly. So I would just scrape all of his podcasts here, and in the description, there's his sponsors, right? I could even send my agents to his sponsors. AG1, NetSuite, BetterHelp, Masterclass, Shopify. I would do that at scale. I would compile a list of top podcast sponsors, or I would ask the AI to, I would ask an AI to give me a list of top podcast sponsors, and then I would do a reverse search on Apollo. I would upload this list with all the websites on Apollo, and I would ask Apollo like, who's in charge of sponsoring, who's in charge of podcasts here, and from there I would get the emails of these people, and I would start emailing them. I would email them with, hey, our podcast is similar to Lex Friedman's. I thought you might be interested in sponsoring it because XYZ reason, right? We could AI generate these, by the way. So yes, the similitude to Lex Friedman podcast, explain how much views we have, explain the type of guests we have, explain that, yeah, unlike Lex Friedman, we're not asking for like $10,000 per episode, right? So I would send them an email like that and watch your responses, right? Like you would get a bunch. These people are very interested. It's like doing the work for them, right? you need to have good views and good guests and good content for them to accept. That is the thing. So that's the sponsor approach. Technically, if you want to do some mathematics here, 10,000 a month, right? Let's say that you charge $100 per episode. Let's say that you're a hustler and you're doing 10 podcasts a week, right? That would bring you halfway there. So, 10 podcasts a day, a week, right? 10 podcasts a day. Let's say that you charge $100 per podcast. That's $1,000 a day. So 5,000 per week and 20K a month. You slash that in half. That is 5 podcasts per day, 25 per week, and 100 per month. 100 podcasts times $100 per podcast. That is 10,000 per month. So as you notice, it is much harder to get there. But you could secure a deal with these people. Normally it's more than one guest, more than one sponsor. So normally you'll have probably like rotating 3 to 5 sponsors. If you want to do some easier math, let's say that you have a very high value podcast, right? And you have, I don't know, like 1,000 to 10,000 views per podcast in a very specific niche. Let's say board members, right? High value people or high net worth individuals like CEOs of family offices, right? Let's say that you do 10 podcasts per month and you charge 1,000 per podcast. That is $10,000 a month, true sponsors only. And 10 podcasts a month, it's not a lot of podcasts. It's like 2 to 3 podcasts a week. So let's say that they're an hour, they're a bit longer form, right? You can also increase the packages of your sponsors, right? You can tell them, hey, I'm going to pitch it at first in the intro, then in the middle of the pod, then at the end. That can be one offer. Another offer can be, hey, on my YouTube video, I'm going to have an ad that is going to be your video in the middle of the pod, right? Then it's like, okay, I'm going to have it in the YouTube description. I'm going to have it in the website. So you can have various packages and upsell them on the fact that if they get more exposure, they will get more clients, right? My advice for this, also before getting to sponsor, I mean, this video is like make $10,000 a month with these 3 ways, right? Why the second way, I'm about to get to the third. But my advice with that second one is that don't start with sponsors in mind. That only comes in later. Plus, it comes with the very important caveat that your podcast needs to be very high quality. That's complicated for most mortals' mind. So do not start with that. What I do recommend starting with, again, is lead gen podcasting, but a gateway to the second point here to make money with sponsors is affiliate money. So instead of going to these people and be like, hey, pay me $100 to $1,000 per podcast. You don't know me, that's fine. Take a big risk on me. Come on, take a risk. No, instead of doing that, find great companies that you're already using. For example, right now I'm using StreamYard. I'm an affiliate with them. I have an affiliate link, so every person that will actually buy a StreamYard subscription, I will get paid. I think half of like $40. And that's fully scalable, right? Like most people do not churn off StreamYard. So if I start with that strategy, I'll get paid. Plus, I will show potential sponsors that will pay me per episode some sponsors. They don't need to necessarily know that it's affiliate. It's like, hey, StreamYard is sponsoring me. Hey, Opus is sponsoring me. Hey, Persona is sponsoring me. I have all these sponsors. So why don't you come in and sponsor me? It's social proof. It's authority, right? It is also urgency because some of these sponsors monopolize some of your episodes. It's like, hey, dude, it's time for you to take that spot, take that ad spot. Also, some of them might be even competitors to them. So it's like, yeah, time to box them out, right? And you come in, you start paying for my podcast. So I do recommend that before you get to actual sponsors, you do the affiliate thing. I'm still doing the affiliate thing up to this day. Why? Because I think it's so win-win. I think it's the best offer ever. So that was the second one. Now, with the third one, and the final way to monetize a podcast, drum roll, YouTube AdSense. YouTube AdSense is micro revenue. I think they pay me like 100, 300 a month. It's very small. I'm not obsessed with like making great content and views. It's growing on me, just like SEO is. I'm learning that, but you can get pretty big, and it's such a motivator to just start doing some videos. Dude, I'm getting like one fucking call every 3 minutes. YouTube AdSense, amazing. Why? Because you know that every time that you're making a video or a podcast, you're getting paid. It doesn't matter if it's cents or if it's dollars. The important is that you're getting paid. And that is a trigger in the brain that will force you to do even more videos and to get obsessed with podcasting. Getting $10,000 a month through AdSense is pretty hard. Technically, in my case, I need 1,000 more, not 1,000, 100 times more views. 30 to 100 times more views, which would be a puzzle. Because to do so, like the easy way is like to be quite dramatic, to be a drama queen. That's how most people do it. And me, I'm in B2B, right? Plus, I'm no drama queen for those that know me. So 30 to 100 times more views, that would be quite hard. So if you want to monetize through Google AdSense, my advice is be a drama queen. Yeah, sort of. I mean, there's like halfway methods that we can use to sort of get there, right? I would say like great content. Again, if you check Alex Hormozi, I don't think he's a drama queen, and he's in B2B and he gets a shitload of view. Alex probably gets paid at a couple of thousands of dollars per video he makes in a cycle of a year. So that's pretty good. And it's recurring money, right? So that's pretty fun, to constantly get paid by AdSense. Plus it's authority as well, just to have loads of views on YouTube. So since day one, I've been super bullish on YouTube, not necessarily because they pay you to do stuff, but just because it's where I consume my content, right? That is where I get educated on a daily basis. YouTube and Audible and Wikipedia. So I thought, like, why not post my podcast in there? Plus, you can separate in YouTube chapters. You can put a nice little description, right? I think podcasting platforms like Apple and Spotify, they're so old, especially Apple. Old Tim. They're so slow. It's still like RSS feeds. Sure, iPhones are beautiful, but yeah, I don't think Apple's a growing company. And I don't mean from a stock perspective, I mean from a real perspective. So YouTube AdSense money. So the thing is, guys, with the laws of scale, if you get better and better at making content and video, at some point you will hit the YouTube algorithm. So it's like massive efforts for like 3 years or 5 years till your brain learns. And at one point, the YouTube algorithm will start promoting you, right? Mr. B style, Alex Hormozi style. So the third way is AdSense. Very hard. If you're great at content, if you're like one of these influencers, one of these drama queens, you'll do good on the point number 3. You may monetize your podcast quick with that. Like Logan Paul, right? Logan Paul instantly, his first podcast had like $10,000 to it with his brother Jake Paul, the boxer. I prefer Jake Paul, the boxer, by the way. So guys, that was 3 ways to get 10K per month through podcasting. The first one, easy, lead gen podcasting. Let's say that your MRR, let's say that your services, they start at 2K per month, like most agencies or most consultants. Well, I mean, you get five clients. Five clients. All you need to get five clients is 50 podcasts because you will close 1 out of 10. The second way to get to 10K is podcast sponsors. So a bit harder, focus on content, get great guests, then outreach to sponsors like I've shown you. The third way is YouTube AdSense. So if you have any question for me, you let me know in the comments or you send me a message on LinkedIn. I'll be glad to answer your question.